This episode discusses public court records and official police documents for informational purposes. Any commentary, opinions, or theories expressed are our own. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. There are some stories that leave behind more questions than answers, cases where the official cause of death is known, but the circumstances surrounding those deaths continue to haunt a community long after the headlines fade. Today's episode takes us to Kirksville, Missouri, a college town in the northern part of Missouri that became the center of a deeply unsettling mystery. Between 2016 and 2017, 5 young people connected to the same social circle died, and 4 of them died by suicide. 3 were members of the Alpha Kappa Lambda fraternity at Truman State University. The others were closely tied to that same group of friends. As the deaths mounted, students, parents, and fraternity brothers began noticing a disturbing pattern. One name kept appearing in conversations, in lawsuits, and eventually even in national media coverage. That name, Brandon Grossheim. But before we go any further, it's important to say this very clearly. No one has ever been criminally charged in connection with these deaths, including Brandon Grossheim. And many of the claims we'll discuss today come from civil lawsuits, investigative reporting, and other podcasts, not criminal convictions. What happened in Kirksville remains in many ways unresolved. And that's what makes this case so difficult to forget. Do you know this case, Mindy?
I do not know about this case. I don't know anything about it.
This one was new to me, and I do want to thank Brooke,
our cousin, yes,
for this recommendation. She sent me a link to a podcast called The Peacemaker, and it was all about Truman State and what is known as a suicide cluster. So thank you for Brooke for suggesting this, because it is very sadly interesting and a mystery.
Yeah.
So thank you, Brooke, for recommending this so we can continue to shine light on the victims.
Yes, and I saw Brooke, and she told me to tell you that she likes to listen to us because she feels like she's talking to us and hanging out with us when we're doing our episodes. So that's why she says she listens.
Aww.
Not necessarily for the content, but because she likes to hear, like, it's like we're hanging out with her. We love you, Brooke.
Yes, we love you, Brooke, and wish we could see you and your family more.
Yes.
So thank you for that case recommendation. And before we go any further, listener discretion is advised. This episode does discuss suicide, mental health struggles, and the deaths of young adults. If these topics are difficult for you, we totally understand. And if you want to skip this episode or think about listening with support, we understand that. And if you are someone you know struggling, help is available. In the U.S., all you have to do is call or text 3 numbers, 988, to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Welcome back to Missouri Mayhem, Mystery and Murder, the podcast where we explore the most haunting mysteries, murders, cold cases, and unexplained events connected to our Show-Me State. I'm Megan.
And I'm Mindy. Thanks for joining us today. As always, we appreciate our listeners and followers. You make it possible for us to keep making episodes.
And as always, our goal is the same every episode, to tell these cases and stories with respect, to keep victims' names alive, and to focus on facts while still acknowledging that there might be questions that still remain. One last thing before we head to Kirksville to talk about this case, we are officially out of the closet. Woo-hoo, and we made it 10 feet to the bed. So we've officially moved out of the closet.
What's really funny about the whole thing is that I don't know how many episodes.
50?
Okay, we've recorded 50 in a closet when we could have been doing all of them
not
from this bed.
Yes, or a table or anywhere.
I was crab walking out of there. My butt hurt and it was awful.
We both have major back problems.
Now we have this like real cozy bed and
it's worth it.
It's great.
Yes. So yeah, I realized I have a really nice microphone, and the program we use to produce this has great sound system that is able to get rid of kind of the static or any of that weird noise.
Yeah.
So it only took 50 episodes to learn.
Oh my
We are beginners, we are beginners. So,
yes, beginners. Okay, now we know. Now we know.
Now we know. All right. Want to head to Kirksville, Missouri?
Sure.
Don't know how much you know. How much do you know about Kirksville?
All I know is that it's a college town. That's all I really know. Yeah.
Correct. And I didn't know much about it other than that either, really, before this case, just a little bit. Kirksville sits in what's known as Adair County, and it's in northeastern Missouri. And it's a town of about roughly 17,000 people. So it's a decent sized town. Known primarily, you're right, for being the home of Truman State University, which is also known as the Harvard of the Midwest.
It is?
The Harvard of the Midwest.
Ew.
So it's known to be very rigorous
Fancy.
academically. And I had a few smart friends, acquaintances that I graduated with that went up there. And they were smart. And so from what I know.
So it really is the Harvard?
Very, very academically rigorous.
Oh, okay.
It used to be known as.
Maybe that's why I didn't go there.
Well, that's why. For sure. Northeast State. So, we have Maryville, Missouri, which is Northwest Missouri State University. I think this was Northeast Missouri. But then in around, I think it was 1996-ish, they renamed it to Truman State.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now for many families in Missouri, Truman represented a big opportunity for their kids. Again, it's consistently ranked among the state's top public universities and does attract students from everywhere, not just Missouri. And in a place like Kirksville, the university, of course, is the community. I mean, kind of like where where you went to school. I mean, like Maryville, the school is the hub
of the population.
Town.
Yeah.
Things get pretty quiet when the college kids go home in the summer.
Yeah, definitely.
Students recognize each other on the square, at coffee shops, at sporting events, and, of course, fraternity and sorority houses. And friend groups overlap, news travels quickly. And in 2016, this close-knit environment will become both a source of great support for the community in Kirksville and also a source of some fear in the community. Okay. Now, one of the main things we need to talk about here is an organization that's going to be at the heart of this case, the Alpha Kappa Lambda House, fraternity house on Truman State. Now, this Alpha Kappa Lambda, they are one of the most, or at this time was one of the most active fraternities at Truman State. And they like to be called, or were known as AKL, which I appreciate because Alpha Kappa Lambda is a mouthful.
Yes.
Say it.
Alpha Kappa Lambda.
Yeah, it's kind of
AKL is much easier.
Much better. And like many Greek organizations, the fraternity promised their members more than just a place to live and a calendar of social events. They said, you know what, come here. We are a brotherhood. We have leadership opportunities. We can provide lifelong friendships. And for kids coming to college, often hours away from their home or the first time they've ever been away, that's very appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, several of the young men we're going to talk about today are at the center of this story. At the center of this story, are found within the AKL organization. These men, these boys, they studied together, attended parties together, and to those around them, the AKL seemed to be a very close-knit of friends. Another thing to keep in mind is that based on a lot of accounts, a lot of things I've listened to and read, and these are just, again, based on accounts, even though Truman State is itself a dry campus.
Yeah.
A lot of colleges, like, we're a dry campus, no alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
That is not something that a lot of these organizations hold to. So alcohol does seem to be at the center of a lot of the AKL activities. Yeah. And of course, parties on and off campus, which is normal.
Yeah.
Especially in a college town.
Yes.
I mean, I came to visit you a couple times at Williamsburg when it used to be known as CMSU. And there's more than a few parties going on. So
she had a really good time, but let's just say the next morning
was not
a good time for her.
On the way home,
she was vomiting in her McDonald's bag.
I think it was
Sonic bag.
Oh, yeah. So I understand, alcohol, even though it's a dry campus, alcohol is going to be involved. But that also, as we know, alcohol can make things worse.
Oh, yeah.
Too. So what makes Truman unusual is that many think during this time frame that these happened, that alcohol was starting to become a big problem amongst, not just like we're partying, socializing, drinking. We're drinking to help relieve stress, anxieties, depressions.
Yes.
And that's
I
not
remembered
good.
the song.
You did? It's Tainted Love, isn't it?
I'll stop the world
Oh,
and
that's
melt with you.
you.
Yes!
Oh,
Sorry, we got off track there for
yes.
a minute, but when she
I
came,
could see in your eyes you were thinking about
yes,
something.
when she came to visit me, there was a song and we were dancing to it, and then forever.
Every time we
And
heard that.
it's I'll stop the world and melt with you. I love that.
see the
Okay.
difference, and it's getting
That's the
better.
song.
That one. That was a good song. That's
Okay,
right.
sorry. That was
Yes.
important info.
Yes, that was. So as college towns, fraternities, so just keep in mind that alcohol seemed to be in this circle
Yeah.
of things that happen. Now, among the AKL circle, we have this fellow student I mentioned in the intro by the name of Brandon Grossheim. And by many accounts, Grossheim presents himself within the fraternity on campus as someone who is deeply interested in psychological, philosophical, and emotional struggles of those around him. Is that something when you were in college that interested you?
Like the psychological and emotional struggles of others.
Of people around you, that you were really interested in that and would ask questions and want to know?
Not to that level. If they
And-
were my friend and I thought, I was concerned,
Sure, they're your friend, they're showing some signs.
but not like everybody
but
or
just someone you randomly meet or
right.
met
No.
a couple times, all of a sudden asking these deep questions.
That's
Well,
something you get into
Build
later.
up.
Build up to,
yes.
yeah.
Friends and fraternity brothers later told reporters that Brandon would often gravitate towards students who were experiencing depression, anxiety, and other personal difficulties. And according to interviews published years later and allegations contained in some civil lawsuits, which we'll talk about later, Brandon Grossheim sometimes liked to refer to himself as the peacemaker. That's why that podcast that Brooke sent me was called that.
The peacemaker.
He liked to be known as the peacemaker.
Okay.
They said he also deemed himself a superhero.
Oh my.
That's that you're getting a little God complex.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're saying that kind of stuff. But he believed that he possessed a unique ability to guide people through their emotional pain. So to me, that's someone who thinks they're an empath.
Yeah.
Someone who's like, I'm an empath. I'm really connected to people's emotions and can feel them. Okay, well, let's see how this progresses.
Okay.
Now, several former fraternity members recalled that conversations with Brandon could be really intense and very philosophical, rather than just casual discussions that most friends have, like, oh my gosh, I got freaking D on this test,
Yeah.
or I need to study, or where are we going out this weekend, or you want to go get some lunch. He wants to steer conversations toward like these big life questions, like the purpose of life. And
What's the purpose of us going to lunch?
what's the purpose of eating lunch? No,
What is the purpose?
but he liked to ask, like, what's the purpose of life? Why do people suffer? Why is it a suffering allowed? Free will to do what you like, no matter what. Death, and whether life had any inherent meaning. I mean, this is deep stuff for 20-some-year-olds.
This is
who
depressing.
haven't even lived life yet.
No, yes.
I mean, I don't even know that I would have known what philosophical meant when I was 20.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So, but students describe some students that had befriended him or were acquaintances with him said he would spend hours talking with them about their mental health, their relationships, like boyfriends, girlfriends, the relationships with their parents, other family members.
It's almost like he was really nosy too.
Yes. And it was like he's
nosy.
analyzing them as they're telling him all this. It's almost like he thinks he has this ability.
It's like he thinks he's special and that he can help anybody with their problems.
And maybe from what I've read and listened to, he was a very, very easy person to talk to.
Yes.
People said he had that ability where you felt like you could tell him things and he would ask you those deep questions that most people steered away from. And some people think that's neat and feel validated.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that too, I ask myself could it be too, is he targeting vulnerable people? And once we get to the end of this, we'll talk more about that. But these conversations eventually become a big focus of later investigations. Like what was said prior to these things happening.
Yeah.
Now, according to allegations made by some families, again, in civil lawsuits, we'll get to the nitty-gritty of that at the end, Brandon developed unusually close relationships with several students, again, who family members feel were already vulnerable because of depression, trauma, or other emotional distress. And lawsuits allege that what began as emotional support from Brandon to these kids evolved into something that felt sinister. And this is according to the families. The families claim that he would portray himself as being uniquely capable of understanding their pain. I understand you. And over time, they state he increasingly encouraged and talked about fatalistic things like suicide with them.
Encouraged.
Right. And the lawsuit further alleges that he offered what they described to some of these students as step-by-step guidance on coping with depression that might ultimately include discussions of suicide as a solution.
Oh my gosh, what a mother trucker.
So for one instance, a girl that I listened to on a podcast, she was anonymous. She said she had become friends with Brandon. They were just very, very much new friends.
Yeah.
She said they'd only known and had been talking for a little bit. She said they weren't boyfriend, girlfriend, and that he very quickly wanted to get into these discussions. And at first she's like, this is kind of interesting. She said, and then one day we start talking about suicide. And he makes the comment to her, well, you know, if you did ever do that, your family would understand. And she was appalled. And she said, I stopped and looked at him and said, you think my family would understand if I committed suicide? And he said, yeah, they'd be glad you weren't in pain anymore. And she said, my family would not understand if I did that.
No.
I would not do that. I can't do that to them. And why are
they
you
killed
even...
themselves. Oh, it's okay. He's not in pain anymore. It's all good.
Yeah, like they're just going to be able to move on with
No.
their life. And so she said that really bothered her. She lost his number, never talked to him again.
Yeah.
So that is a little insight into maybe, Again, I am going to say this over and over on this podcast, so you may get sick of hearing it, but it is important to emphasize that these allegations have never been proven in a criminal court, okay? There are no criminal lawsuits.
Right.
But we're going to talk about some civil lawsuits. Brandon Grossheim has never been charged with a crime related to any of the things we're going to talk about, and he has denied wrongdoing through his legal counsel, okay? Now, as more tragedies start to unfold within the same circle, we're going to find it's going to be hard for AKL members to forget about it, and they're going to start looking back and thinking about conversations they've had and behaviors that they thought were maybe not that big of a deal are going to have some new significance as they move down the road, okay? Now, for parents who are grieving over these individuals, these wonderful humans they've lost, fraternity members, people in Kirksville, they just have one question over all this. Is this series of tragedies, are these just unrelated among close friends, just a bad series of coincidence that things kept happening? Or had someone exerted an unhealthy and dangerous influence over vulnerable young people at Truman State or in Kirksville? That's the question. And more than a decade later, honestly, I wish I could say, but there's
Still nothing.
Still no legal answer. But we're going to tell you what we know. And again, this is all from investigative reporting, podcasts, news articles, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's get started. And as we know, every story has a beginning. And sadly, in this case, it begins with a young man whose life held enormous potential and promise. And his name was Alexander Mullins. And he liked to go by Alex. He was 21 years old, entering his junior year. And again, we're in the year 2016 here at Truman State. He is originally from Missouri, and Alex had built a life in Kirksville pretty close to what most college kids would hope to find when they go off. He was a member of AKL, that fraternity, and he had many close friendships. He lived there in the fraternity house. Those who knew him described him as very smart, personable, very genuine, and he had plans for the future. And from what people could tell, things were going okay in his life, nothing hugely out of the ordinary. Now, within that circle of friends is fellow student at Truman State, Brandon Grossheim. Public reporting and later court filings indicate that these two, Alex and Brandon, knew each other through the fraternity. Brandon is also an AKL member. And they share the same social circle. According to interviews with former fraternity members published years later, Brandon often spent significant time talking with Alex and other students about his mental health, his relationships, and again, deeper meaning of life questions. Now, the nature of those conversations That's the thing here. We're going to find Brandon got to know many of these people, had many conversations, but we don't know exactly what those conversations.
What was said.
And that's kind of where, a lot of scrutiny and things like what happened that potentially led up to this.
Yeah.
Now, on a day in June 2016, again, this friendship between Brandon and Alex takes on heartbreaking significance for the family because Alex dies by suicide in June of 2016. And according to court filings, Brandon is the person who discovers Alex after he's dead, after he dies, and he's the one that calls 911.
How did he kill himself?
Well, from what it stated, he had hung himself from a dresser, something where he could gain gravity, but he was found hung by Brandon.
Okay.
At the time, authorities, of course, this is awful. They just treat it's awful no matter what. They treat it as a suicide. They have no reason to believe otherwise. From what the scene offers, it looks like a straightforward suicide.
Okay.
Sadly, Brandon has found him, and there's little reason to believe that there's any connection to anything beyond this tragedy of potentially, a mental health struggle that Alex must have been having. Now, no one can imagine that Alex is going to be, number one, the first of 5 people from Kirksville from the same interconnected group to die in the following months.
From like the AKL group and then that group.
AKL, and then we're going to find there's some connections locally within Kirksville itself that Brandon has, but several of them are AKL related. Now, in the aftermath of Alex's death, the fraternity, of course, mourns. It's awful. The students try to return to campus, try to get back into a normal rhythm that they can. But of course, Alex is gone. His family's grieving. And it's awful. He was a very important part of so many people's lives. And conversations then start to drift back to memories of their friend. And people keep thinking like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
I missed something. Like, we didn't think he'd do this. Like, this was not something that we were worried about. Like, everyone has their vulnerable moments, get depressed, have some things going on, but they were just shocked and they felt bad. They're like, he's living right here under our roof around all of us brothers.
How did we not know? How were we not able to stop this?
Yeah. Now, at the time, no one knew that Alex's death, again, would later become the starting point of a far more troubling story that is getting ready to take over Kirksville for about the next year. Okay. This is June 2016. So if the death of Alex Mullins is our first shock wave, then the loss of this next AKL member, Jacob Hughes, who liked to go by Jake, was kind of the moment in Kirksville where people start going, oh my gosh, okay, wait a second. This has happened again? Again?
Yeah.
So Jake was just 19.
And he was an AKL?
He is also an AKL. In fact, I think he was either treasurer or secretary.
Okay.
Very well loved. He's a sophomore psychology major from St. Louis. And like many students there, he'd come to find acceptance, a future, and he found the AKL house and felt like he found it there.
He may have even had classes with this guy, Brandon, if he was a psychology major.
Yes. Now, to those who knew him, Jake is social. He's energetic. He lives in the AKL house. And again, your brothers then are now not just your fraternity brothers. They're your roommates. They might be your classmates. So among these brothers, as we said, is Brandon Grossheim. Grossheim and Jake share the same living space and daily routine, meaning they lived basically in the same hall on the same floor. And according to investigative reporting, including details later published by The New Yorker publishes in 2021 an article about what happened in Kirksville in 2016, 2017, which really brought it back to
life.
Yes. And then that's when the Peacemaker podcast kind of grabbed onto it too. So in The New Yorker, they basically said that Brandon and Jake's friendship extended beyond the fraternity life. And maybe they enjoyed some more experimental type things, like besides drinking. Maybe they liked marijuana, or maybe they liked some psychedelic drugs once in a while. Again, this is according to The New Yorker.
Okay.
Now, again, these details are not 100%. They're from what we heard out there. So that
Yeah.
may or may not be the case. What we do know that though is in general, there are substances involved. And so
Sure.
as there may be. Now, what's clear from multiple accounts is that Brandon had become one of the people Jake interacted with most frequently, especially in the weeks leading up to his death.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So according to police reports and fraternity accounts and later investigative journalism, Jake attends a party at the AKL house the night before he dies. During that evening, many AKL members and students report that Jake is making statements indicating that he felt like he was in emotional distress and expressing suicidal thoughts.
So he's saying this at the party
Correct.
to people that are there.
Yes. So multiple people are concerned about him. How he worded it, what he said exactly, I don't know. But according to many reports, people were worried about him that night. He was acting a bit irrational.
Sure.
Or,
saying some things that are kind of scary.
Yes. So concern spreads among the brothers at the party. And recognizing they're like, okay, Jake's not okay tonight. We don't think he's in a safe state of mind, which good on them.
Mm-hmm.
They decide to partner him up with someone they feel they can trust and that Jake can trust for the night to kind of stay with him, kind of babysit him for the night, to make sure he's okay. And that is
Brandon Grossheim.
At the time, Grossheim was seen by people in the fraternity. Again, we've had the one suicide, the sad suicide of Alex. At this time, they still believe he is someone who frequently engages with struggling students, and he tries to help them. He tries to be emotional support during their crisis. So they think who would be a better match than Brandon to have him be with Jake tonight. Now, according to civil lawsuits later filed by some of the victims' families, Brandon was actively communicating with Jake during this period through text messages. Those filings allege that instead of redirecting him to immediate professional help or emergency intervention, Brandon just provides messages that, in the family's opinion, escalate the situation. And according to them, it includes what the family says is a step-by-step guidance regarding suicide.
Like he texted this?
Yes, to him. So in the days leading up or that evening, he's not saying, buddy, it's okay. It's going to be okay. I'll help you. I'm with you. I'll help you.
He's saying, no, this is how you do it.
Right. He's escalating it according to the family. Now, these allegations remain disputed and have never been proven in court. So keep that in mind. Brandon Grossheim, in statements reported through legal proceedings, described Jake as being in emotional distress that evening following an argument with his girlfriend.
Brandon says this.
Yeah, so Brandon says he was really upset because of that. Now, what is not disputed is that the situation was somewhat unstable that night, and many people within the fraternity were aware that Jake was having a hard time that night. So in the early morning hours, around 2 a.m., Jake Hughes is found dead in his room at the fraternity house. And who do you think discovers him and calls authorities?
Brandon
Grossheim. When police arrive at the scene, officers immediately recognize Brandon because they just talked to him a few weeks before in the Alex Mullins death.
Yes.
Now, I listened to that interview from the Peacemaker podcast that the police are literally standing there as they've shown up on the scene for Jake. And there he is. And they mention, like, you're the guy we just talked to a few weeks ago, right? But they never say what I think I would have probably said. Now, maybe they do and I didn't hear it. I would have been like, really? I just talked to you. Man, that is rough.
That is coincidental, man.
2 times you found one of your fraternity members twice?
Yeah.
Like, that's tough.
That's tough on you.
But they don't say that. In fact, they in the interviews I heard throughout this process with police and Brandon, they're very worried about Brandon's feelings. They're like, you're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. Because of course, they probably want to believe there's nothing sinister happening here. But they're very almost coddling to him, it seems like to me, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Now, according to audio referenced in the Peacemaker podcast, Brandon spoke with officers on scene and claims he attempted CPR. I don't know if that's true or not. He also asked questions to the police about whether or not this situation might be considered a copycat suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Because Alex had just committed suicide. And of course, this is something later that friends, fraternity members, investigators are now like, that's kind of weird. He asked that.
Yeah.
Now, again, just like Alex, police rules Jake's death a suicide. No criminal charges were filed and never have been in connection with this case. But for those inside the fraternity house that night, the brothers, the emotional impact, of course, is immediate and overwhelming. They now have a second fraternity member that has committed suicide within a month.
Yeah. And the night he did it, he was talking to them about it.
They all knew.
And they all feel bad.
They're like, we didn't do enough.
Right.
We didn't do enough to help him.
Yeah.
So as the AKL fraternity is trying to process these two deaths, life inside the chapter begins to change in ways that nobody really anticipated. They're grieving. They're leaning on each other. But amid all this, some members start to become very uneasy, not only because of the two deaths, but because of the behavior of one of their own.
Okay.
According to interviews with former fraternity members, investigative reporting and allegations later outlined in lawsuits, Brandon's actions following the deaths really started raising alarms among the fraternity brothers.
Yeah.
Listen to this. And I'd have all kinds of whistles and bells going off. Several former members alleged that Brandon Grossheim started wearing Jake's clothes.
What?
And moved into his room.
Oh my gosh, that's weird.
Yes. The lawsuit also alleges that he took possessions that belonged to Hughes, including a safe that some claim had money and or drugs in it.
Mm-hmm.
And these allegations, again, have never been proven in court. This is what a lot of the members of the fraternity are claiming. They also say that Brandon starts dating Jake's girlfriend right after his death.
And she fell for that.
Yes. According to the Peacemaker podcast, she says that basically Brandon and her became romantically involved about a month after Jake's death because they were connecting in grief.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, the people in the fraternity, the brothers are like, okay, this just feels off. And the timing of this, we don't understand it. And it's making us very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, Brandon reportedly is becoming even more involved in the emotional lives of more students.
Great.
Yeah, he's finding more people to psychoanalyze. According to former fraternity members, he embraced, again, the nickname Peacemaker and referred to himself sometimes as a superhero. And students later tell reporters that Brandon, again, would spend long hours with vulnerable classmates. They interviewed several people, including the girl I talked about earlier. He would coax them and poke them.
Pull it out.
Yeah, let's talk about depression.
Yeah.
Have you had trauma in your life? Tell me about that. Relive your trauma.
Nobody would be sad if you killed yourself.
Yes.
They'd know you'd be in a better place.
They said he liked to talk about this free will type thing. Like, you have the right to decide.
To take your own life.
Yes. What to do as a human being with you, yourself, your body. Yeah. Now, some classmates, even on that podcast, still support Brandon to this day and say, I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he was a nice guy trying to help people that just happened, like bad luck.
Well, he sounds like Dr. Kevorkian.
That's what I was going to say. Like a sick Dr. Kevorkian.
Let me talk
Assisted
you into
suicide.
It. Yeah.
Yes. Others, however, later question again what boundaries the conversations crossed. Now, okay.
At any time during these two, did he ever call the police or call someone for help and say, hey, my friend Jake needs help?
Yeah, right. What do I do? He's talking about committing suicide. No, not from what I can see.
Yeah.
I've seen no documentation that he reached out to their family members.
Right.
Like took his phone and text his mom.
Or
called
just
his
the
mom,
police and say I need to do a welfare check.
Yes.
Someone's threatening suicide. Nothing like that.
No, and just wait because we're just into the first 2 and we got 5 to go.
Yeah.
So again, we're letting you decide what you think because again, there's no real resolution to this. Now, we're in the fraternity house. Concerns are building about what Brandon's doing, especially after Jake Hughes' death. And members have said that not only is he doing these things, moving into the room, wearing the clothes, the girlfriend, but some are basically saying he's being kind of erratic in his behavior.
If I were his parents, I'd be like, if I were Jake's parents, I'd be like, give me my kid's clothes back.
Oh, yeah. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Get out of his room.
Yes.
Let us empty it out. Quit
trying to be Jake or whatever you're doing. Are you trying to take over his life?
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Well, and by the time Jake sadly passes away and we now have 2 suicides, attention's being put on the AKL house because, of course, you've got 2 of the same fraternity members died by suicide within a month.
Yeah.
So this is scary. And again, Brandon, according to fraternity members, is starting to act erratic. And I don't know exactly what that means. Some are starting to question, why was he the person that found both of these people?
Them.
Plus, again, what he's doing afterwards. They also said what you're doing is very much lacking empathy. You claim you're so empathetic. How do you think the family feels knowing you're now dating his girlfriend and wearing his clothes,
sleeping in his bed?
Yeah, it didn't line up for fraternity members. They're like, you're saying this, but you're doing another. It's weird. And whether they viewed it individually or collectively, tension was growing. And by the fall of 2016, a few months after these 2 boys had sadly died, AKL said, you know what, Brandon, you're out.
Yeah.
This is weird. We can't condone this anymore. And from what I listened and read, this was a split decision. Majority decided, we're going to expel him and make him move out of the house. But there were quite a few people that, again, at this point, still felt like he was just in the wrong, bad luck on his part to find this. But in general, they said, yep, they expelled him. He moved out of the fraternity house.
Okay.
Now, many of the brothers hoped, okay, this has got to be the end of this.
Yes.
I mean, this has been horrible. But no. Instead, this is sadly just the beginning.
No.
Now, after leaving the fraternity house or getting kicked out, Brandon moves into an off-campus apartment complex just a few blocks from Truman State, not far, known as the Journal Building. Either a paper was published there many years ago or people from the school used it from the journalism department, but that's why it's called the Journal Building.
Okay.
Not owned by the university, independently owned. So he moves there. What had started inside the fraternity house is no longer going to be confined to the fraternity house. Now, we're not done there, but it's not going to be confined.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. This tragedy, is getting ready to spread beyond campus in a way that, of course, nobody is prepared for. Okay. By late 2016, Brandon has been expelled. He's living in the Journal Building. And this is where his life becomes intertwined with our 3rd victim, Alex Voigt.
Okay.
And according to lawsuits and investigative reporting and accounts later examined in national media coverage, Brandon and Alex Voigt, so we had Alex Mullins. He was our first Alex. This is a different Alex. Brandon and Alex Voigt live in the Journal Building together.
Okay.
Not just live in the building, across the hall.
Just right there.
Right across the hall. And this building is actually owned by Alex Voigt's dad. Okay. His dad owns this. Their proximity, though, is not just social and physical, like the proximity, like we live across the hall, we can socialize. They also work together.
Oh, boy.
So it extends into their employment. Brandon got a job or had a job. I'm not sure if he had it before or after at a bar and grill called the Wooden Nickel in Kirksville. And this is owned by Alex Voigt's dad, too.
Okay.
It's kind of small town.
Yeah.
So Alex's dad owns the
a lot
bar
of stuff.
and he owns the Journal Building.
Yeah.
Okay. And Alex worked there as a cook. And Brandon worked there too. And the 2 reportedly spent many hours during their shifts, became friends. They started socializing outside of work and basically became close friends. They're around each other all the time and I think got along. Now, former acquaintances later described that the 2 also shared a lifestyle that they liked. which was heavy socializing, which to me, AKA partying.
Party. Yeah.
Heavy socializing.
Yes.
They also like to drink, and they may have liked drug use, including marijuana and some other things. Now, these details, again, are not from any criminal findings, but from civil litigation. I mean, what's clear, though, through multiple sources is that by early 2017, we're about 5-6 months from the 2 suicides at the fraternity house. Brandon has become a regular and visible part of Alex's daily life. Okay. By the beginning of 2017. So on January 29th, 2017, Alex Voigt dies by suicide from hanging in his apartment in the Journal building across the hall from Brandon in Kirksville. Now, Brandon found the other 2. He found Alex Mullins and Jake. Alex Voigt's body is sadly discovered by his girlfriend, who tragically woke up to find him lifeless in their apartment. I don't know the details, if she was interviewed, what happened, but again, the investigation into it leads, it's a suicide. There's no criminal action here. Now, investigation into his death, of course, reveals that Brandon lives in the same building, and they established that he was the last known person to see Alex alive. Again.
Yes.
Third time. Now, in the aftermath of Alex's death, attention within Kirksville about what's happening, I mean, this becomes like, what the heck? So we had 2 on campus. We have 1 off campus. And again, this is strange.
Yeah.
I thought maybe this was just something within the fraternity. But now we have Alex Voigt. He's not
in the fraternity, right?
And he is not in the fraternity.
But he lives across from Grossman.
Correct. He goes to
Grossheim.
school. Yeah, Grossheim. And he, according to what I read, Alex attended a local community college. So he wasn't involved with Truman State or AKL at all. The only commonality is Brandon. So we're in a residential building, where this same individual who'd been connected socially and geographically to these other victims is present. And that proximity is a huge focal point, of course, in the later civil lawsuits. And these families are alleging that Brandon's presence and relationships continue to overlap with multiple victims dying by suicide.
Yeah.
And in many cases, there are texts, according to the family, that prove he was not supporting them like he should have been.
Right.
He was doing more of the encouraging.
Yes.
Now, for many who are watching this pattern unfold from the outside, the question was no longer like limited to the fraternity or Truman State. We've expanded. And the same question keeps coming up. Is this a tragic coincidence of struggling young people, or something more complicated that no one understands? Yeah. And whatever the answer is, the sense of certainty that existed in Kirksville, I mean, the uncertainty is now just rampant.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so here we are, 2017, few months after the deaths of Alex Mullins, Jake Hughes, and Alex Voigt.
3
of them were in the year 2017. The Truman State community was once again forced to confront another loss. Less than a year we're talking about.
Wow.
This man, boy's name, Joshua Thomas, he liked to be called Josh. And now we're back to AKL. He was also a fraternity member, lived in the fraternity house. Like many of his brothers, he'd found belonging there. He'd found friendships, a connected social circle. And among those connections is none other than
Brandon.
Again, Brandon doesn't live in the AKL house anymore.
Right.
But he still is friends with a lot of those guys.
So he's still around there.
So by multiple accounts shared in these lawsuits, Josh had been struggling with some severe depression. Former fraternity members and individuals close to the situation said Brandon chose Josh and felt like he could help Josh, and knew Josh was suffering from severe depression. And again, he liked to talk about those things: suicide, depression, purpose of life. And some of these brothers viewed these conversations at the time as an attempt to help. But now they're questioning his intent.
I would hope so.
Too many connections to too many people who've died.
Yes.
Now, Civil lawsuits filed by victims' families later alleged that Josh Thomas had previously survived a suicide attempt, which is so sad.
Yeah.
And that he was confiding deeply in Brandon Grossheim during these periods of extreme vulnerability. Those filings further claimed that instead of consistently encouraging professional help and support, Brandon wants to become even more involved in Josh's struggles. And the families allege that this influence from Brandon contributed to a pattern of what they call harmful guidance.
Oh my, yeah.
Now, these claims remain allegations only, and none of this has been proven. Okay. So in April 2017, as you can guess, Josh dies by suicide. And
By hanging?
Yes, by hanging, and is found by his fraternity brothers at the AKL house.
Is it possible that someone could be actually hanging all these victims and that none of them actually hung themselves?
I don't think so. Now,
You think all of them hung themselves?
from everything I've read and listened to, I don't think the families dispute that their
Okay.
loved ones committed suicide.
Okay.
But I think what they're alleging is if a lot of, in these cases, it might have been preventable
Right.
or it wouldn't have even happened without outside influence
Yeah.
from someone.
Yes.
And again, I don't think we address that. This is where we're going to start. This is where that term suicide cluster
Yeah.
starts coming about. And I don't know if
Okay.
you've heard that term.
I have not.
When people talk about a suicide cluster, it basically is where it's usually in a community of people, whether it's a fraternity, a sorority,
A small town.
a group of people that are closely connected.
Mhm.
One commits suicide and then another and then another. And the psychology behind it is that they think they're fulfilling something. They
Mhm.
think I'm not sure, can't be in their heads, but basically psychologists view it as it can become a contagion almost.
Yeah.
It can become something that, oh, that person did it. Oh, okay. Well, then I could do that, or I should do that, or I've
Mhm.
thought about doing that. And so,
They did it. It looks like their family's okay. Maybe
right,
it's not.
right. And so this is where people start then going, okay, we've now got three young men who are dead by suicide. So April 2017, Josh dies by suicide. He is not found by Brandon, but he is found by other fraternity members.
Okay.
But Brandon's name is going to come up. Again, according to reporting and court filings, Brandon is considered to be among the individuals that had been in contact with Josh leading up to his death. And reports claim that when Josh was discovered, a handwritten note was found next to him with Grossheim's name and email address on it. What does that mean?
What? Yeah.
I don't know. Authorities rule Josh's death a suicide and no criminal charges are filed. Brandon doesn't find him, but he's connected through text messages, socialization, and according to reports, this note with his name and
Yeah.
Now, for Josh's family and friends, I mean, this is awful.
I
Of
wonder if that
course.
was I wonder if that was Brandon's handwriting on the
On the
name
note,
name and email address or Josh's.
I don't know that. That is a good question.
Yeah.
Was this something, Brandon had written down and given to him?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, there is a growing sense, of course, of unease, definitely amongst the fraternity.
Mhm.
They now have 3 fraternity members that have passed away: Alex Mullins, Jake Hughes, and now Josh Thomas. And before Josh Thomas, Alex Voigt.
Yeah.
So inside AKL, I mean, grief is giving way to some really hard conversations. The brothers and the fraternity are revisiting their past interactions with all of these fraternity members, especially the ones who have passed away, and Brandon, trying to piece together their timelines and conversations. And they're like, what did we miss?
Yeah.
And increasingly, one name keeps coming up, and that's Brandon. And not as an accusation, but as a pattern they couldn't ignore. He's involved.
He just is.
He just
He
is.
just happens to be involved in every single one.
And at this point, there's still no public finding linking the deaths, no criminal charges, no official conclusion that they're connected in any way. But within the fraternity, I mean, certainty was starting to erode. And what had once felt like a series of very separate tragedies was starting to feel like something else, something no one in Kirksville felt fully equipped to even understand. And here we go. Okay. So Alex Mullins, Jake Hughes, Alex Voigt, Josh Thomas. In the aftermath of multiple tragedies, Kirksville, their grief doesn't unfold quietly. I mean, people are talking about this in town. What is going on? I mean, this is crazy. I mean, at first, the deaths of Alex Mullins and Jake Hughes are treated as just extremely devastating, but separate individual tragedies. But now, inside AKL, different conversations are happening. And again, they're getting really worried about why Brandon Grossheim is connected. What unsettled some of the brothers in hindsight isn't like one single moment. They said it's just this repetition of proximity. He just happens to be there. Okay. So after the second death, and especially after the third and fourth tragedies, these coincidences start to feel different. And fraternity members later described the way conversations shifted in the house. What had once been shock turned into pattern seeking. People began asking one another questions in the hall, in the kitchen. They were trying to reconstruct timelines. I mean, they were kind of trying to do their own little investigation. But still, there's nothing clear, nothing proven. There's no actual wrongdoing that anyone can find. And as more details surface through lawsuits, media reporting, and accounts, I mean, the story that once seemed like, again, isolated tragedies is way more complicated than that. And sadly, it's not done. We've had our 4 deaths of our 4 young men. Now we are in the summer of 2017. Still, almost less than a year than this all started. And the series of tragedies tied, at least through proximity, timing, to the same social circle is actually widening. And some strange things here, because this final death that we're going to talk about in this timeline is very different in one critical way. This individual, well, 2 ways, 3 ways, maybe even actually. 1, this person does not die by suicide. 2, this person is a female, not a male. And thirdly, this person has no association to the college or anything like that. Now, and is not a younger person. And this person's a little bit older. Okay. So let's talk about Glenna Hout. Glenna Hout was a 29-year-old woman, a local dog trainer and a bartender in Kirksville. And unlike the previous victims, again, she's not a college student. She's actually a bigger part of the broader community in Kirksville. And her life outside of this tragedy is her life in Kirksville. Again, dog trainer, bartender. And in the months before her death, Glenna is staying in an apartment building. Guess which one?
The Journal building.
She is staying in the Journal building.
Oh, no. And he's staying there too.
And he's living there too. Okay. She was staying in the Journal building following what reporters say a very difficult period in her personal life, including a breakup that she was having trouble dealing with and some other escalating instability. So she was just having a hard time in her life. According to reporting, police accounts, and later investigative coverage, including the Peacemaker podcast, Brandon Grossheim is living right in the same hallway across the hall from the apartment where Glenna was temporarily staying.
Right across the hall, just like the other guy.
Correct.
I wonder if they lived in the same apartment.
That's a good question. I don't know for sure of that. But again, it's all about proximity.
Yes, he was there.
Yes. So July 2017, Glenna Hout dies in the apartment in the Journal building. Unlike the previous 4, though, medical examiners determined that her death is not suicide. Her official cause of death ends up being listed as complications from acute alcohol intoxication with hemorrhaging identified as the immediate medical factor. In other words, in her situation, investigators concluded that she died from excessive alcohol consumption and a severe past of alcoholism.
So all that together,
she basically drank herself
to death,
which can happen.
Yes.
But the circumstances surrounding her final hours draw attention from many people. Again, because so much has happened already. Journal building has had things happen. And here we have another incident. According to reporting and statements referenced in media coverage, Brandon Grossheim tells police that on that evening, he heard a loud thud coming from the apartment across the hall where Glenna was staying. Yeah. He later stated that he was worried because the person who had previously lived in the apartment, I guess it was a loft style bed, that the person who had lived there before Glenna or who had been living there had fallen out of the loft.
Oh, okay.
And he thought, uh-oh, maybe someone's fallen out of the loft again.
Okay.
I'll go check. As he enters the unit to check on her, he finds Glenna visibly upset, but she's alive. And according to his account, he says, I said, "Are you okay?" I could tell she was visibly upset. She says, "I'm fine." Left, went back to his own apartment. Less than an hour after, according to reports, that Brandon checks on Glenna, Glenna is found dead by another individual returning to the apartment. And according to reports, Glenna was covered in bruises.
Yeah. How does that happen?
How does that happen?
Yeah.
Now, as with the earlier cases, no criminal charges are ever filed.
He has escalated.
I don't know. Right. Has he? What's happening?
He has escalated. Yeah.
So, again, investigators, journalists, I mean, there are many details here that become part of a broader public discussion because, again, his presence is here again during the final moments of another person's end of their life.
Yes, again.
Yes. And among those details are questions like, why are you present when all this is happening? Why?
Yeah.
Like, why? And according to some accounts, you just left a woman who was visibly distressed and you didn't do anything to help her.
He's left several people like this.
Yeah. You asked, or you claim you asked if she was okay. You could tell she wasn't. She said she was okay and you left. You didn't call for a welfare check. You didn't ask to sit with her.
Obviously, he beat her.
Well, again, there's no proof in that. Brandon has been reported as stating that he observed no immediate emergency requiring escalation at that time. So he did not feel like he should do that. And those details remain part of disputed accounts and investigative interpretation. Again, no criminal findings. Still, Glenna's death marks something very significant in this timeline. First of all, Glenna's death is the final tragedy. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
It is the final tragedy connected to this evolving cluster of deaths. And after Glenna, the pattern stops growing. But of course, the questions continue. Because by the time this final death occurs in July 2017, I mean, the emotional landscape of Truman State and Kirksville in general is changing. I mean, people are asking, like, what the heck? It was just one after another. And the questions were shifting. Why does it keep happening within the same group of people? Is this a coincidence among struggling adults in a small community? Is this a failure of mental health support from Truman State or Kirksville? Or was there something about the relationships within this circle that no one fully understands?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And at this point, again, no legal answers, only theories. Now, by the time the last death in this timeline has been documented, I mean, the story in Kirksville has already moved beyond grief and moved beyond rumor. It had entered a far more complicated space because this space, after all this happens, is one that is defined by several civil lawsuits, which we're going to talk about, investigative reporting, and a lot of competing interpretations of some painful sequence of events.
Okay.
And what happened next isn't about discovering, of course, new tragedies, thank goodness. It's about trying to understand what happened to the 5 individuals. Now, since there can be no criminal charges brought in this case, the families only have one option. They have to go the civil charges, right? A civil case. So the legal aftermath of the Kirksville suicide cluster involves a landmark civil wrongful death lawsuit, which is initially filed in July 19, about 2 years after all this happens, by two families. Melissa Boderoff Array, who's the mother of Alex Mullins, and Suzanne and Michael Thomas, the parents of Josh Thomas. And again, it's important to note no criminal charges have ever been filed against Brandon. And as prosecutors maintain, there was insufficient physical evidence to meet the threshold for a criminal charge. So basically, there's nothing they could even charge Brandon with.
Yeah.
Now, the consolidated civil litigation targeted 3 different parties. So these lawsuits targeted 3 different groups. The first one is Truman State. The parents sued Truman State under the Missouri Merchandising Practices Act. I don't know a lot about that, but they argue that their paid tuition for their child to go there created a consumer contract that ensured a safe environment, and that the university failed to protect students or warn them about Brandon's dangerous behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, now the outcome of that, and a Dare County judge dismisses the university from the case, a decision that was also upheld by the Missouri Court of Appeals. I mean, the court basically rules that as a public corporation, the university was legally exempt from liability under the specific technical definitions of state's consumer protection law. So basically, they said, sorry, but the college can't be liable. Now, that was the first group that has been given a civil lawsuit. Second group is the Alpha Kappa Lambda fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the lawsuit accused both the National Fraternity Organization and the local, how do you say
Xi.
XI chapter. They basically accused both of those entities of negligence. The families argued that the leadership failed to monitor the house or intervene when frat brothers explicitly raised alarms about Brandon's psychological manipulation.
Yeah.
And he had unchecked access to vulnerable members. Don't think I mentioned this earlier. Many claim he had a master key
to
everyone's room in the fraternity house.
How?
Don't know. I know I've worked in a building with lots of rooms, and there are many master keys.
Yeah.
And you got to keep in check who's got those.
Gosh.
Yeah. Now, the outcome of the AKL lawsuit, the litigation against the fraternity concluded when these organizations decided to reach private settlements with the family.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe Alex Mullins and Josh Thomas's families received some kind of settlement.
Okay.
The final agreements were officially approved. The claims were dismissed with prejudice, and the specific terms are confidential. Again, but they settled outside of court. The third person or entity that's being charged is Brandon Grossheim himself. The core of the lawsuits target Brandon individually, accusing him of utilizing his self-proclaimed peacemaker persona to psychologically manipulate depressed friends, intentionally encouraging their deaths, and providing them with step-by-step guidance.
Oh my gosh, this
suicide.
guy may have not literally killed them, but he killed them with words.
Again, it's like assisted suicide.
Yes, he
in a
used his
psychological
words.
way.
Yes.
Some even claim he was sending messages to their sons or son showing how to tie noose
Oh my
knots.
gosh.
Noose knots. Now, in mid-2023, the parents temporarily dismiss Brandon Grossheim from the original state-level lawsuit without prejudice, which means they can refile charges at any time. Why did they dismiss these in 2023? Because they wanted to isolate and finalize the fraternity settlements.
Mm-hmm.
They only could really do one lawsuit at a time.
Yeah.
Now, they did subsequently exercise their right, and they did refile a brand new wrongful death lawsuit exclusively against Brandon Grossheim. Now, because Brandon resides out of state, from what I've read and according to documents, he's in Illinois, the active litigation was transferred to the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri under federal diversity jurisdiction, where this civil case against him is still ongoing.
Wow. To this day.
To this day. Now, alongside the courtroom proceedings, the case has continued to receive, again, attention through investigative journalism, podcasts like ours, and various online discussions. And for many following the story, the legal process has become one thread in a much bigger narrative, one that also includes competing interpretations of what happened, disputed allegations, and all of these unresolved questions about what, if anything, connects these deaths beyond proximity and circumstance. Is it bad luck? He just happened to be there. The court system continues to evaluate the claims strictly within the civil legal standards. And at the same time, public interest is keeping this case alive because it is very perplexing.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that's what I would call it. Very perplexing.
I mean, I just feel like he literally talked all of them into suicide.
Yeah. Yeah. In our opinion, it's awful big coincidences.
It is.
And as a family member of one of those boys and of Glenna, and you look back, you're like, this just feels off.
Yeah.
So some cases end with verdicts, some end with explanations, and some, even years later, are still being written inside courtrooms and contested in public memory. And the Truman State suicide cluster case remains one of these. It's not finished, it's not resolved, it's just kind of moving forward. Okay. And so, again, we're providing the information. You decide. No one's ever been criminally charged or been charged of anything.
Yeah.
So we do want to stress that. Mindy, would you want to say a quick prayer for all the families involved in this sad tragedy?
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just come to you today and we bring to you all of the families and friends that were involved in the death of these 4 men and 1 young woman. We just ask that whoever knows anything at all, that they would come forward. And we also pray that Brandon, if he knows that maybe if he had done anything, that he would come forward. And then finally, Lord, we just want to come to you today and just say a prayer for all of our listeners for anything they may need in their life. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And I was going to mention this before, but I'll just mention it now. We have had someone bring up that they may not like public praying.
Yeah,
we've had some feedback on that. And here's our response to that. We are going to publicly pray. It's our podcast, and that's what we've chosen to do. It's not illegal. That's our right. If you are not into public praying or praying in general of the sort, you have many options. Skip it, mute it, or don't listen to us. That's kind of your choice.
Well, this is how we were brought up.
It was.
You can't take that out of us.
And so we appreciate the feedback. We do appreciate that everyone has an opinion.
Yes.
But we're not going to stop because it's something we feel compelled to do.
Yes.
Again, you have lots of options of listening to it or not. And don't forget, you guys, this is a heavy topic. We know that. And if you are someone that you know is struggling, remember, you can get help by calling or texting 988 to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You guys, thank you so much for listening to Missouri Mayhem, Mystery, and Murder. I'm Megan. Don't forget, stay safe, stay kind, and stay curious.
And I'm Mindy.
Missouri, you bring the mystery.
And we'll bring the mayhem.
Peace out.